It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand. Right.
And hey there.
Hey there.
Lagata the cat and Basil the dog. Those of you who just listen on the podcast, has he stopped woofing over there?
Yeah. I haven't seen any delivery trucks on the block yet. So as soon as they start showing up, yeah.
So we'll get a little woof in the background. That's fine. I like the background noise. So a little bit of. I mean, we like having animal sounds on the show as often as possible. And
you know what I just noticed on that entry?
What?
You're going to talk about the photos. We don't have any fall photos up there.
We need to do a new intro. It's time to redo it. I've got new stuff. Just a new announced copy and everything, and we should do that. But I should also call to your attention, if you're looking right below you there, another one of our sponsors is back, and that's Happy Leaf LEDs. And of course, there's
no Amos, not wintry yet. No. Sorry, Amos, not winter.
Oh, so folks are already. Everybody's saying, "Oh my goodness!"
They're all saying good morning.
Tracy Moncure, hi Tracy. I'm so glad she's watching out in near San Diego, California.
Sunny California.
Yeah.
No, the sun's not up yet. It's only 7:00 out there.
Yeah, that's true. And over here, it's not up either. There's not much sun.
There's 100% chance of drizzle.
We're in the in-between period now, and our meteorologist Rick DeMaio will be talking about that on the show today, where we're lurching between the 30s and the 50s in a couple of days.
Lurking.
A couple of days.
Lurking between, not lurching between.
Lurching. Lurching's the word I wanted. Not lurking. Lurking is when you're hiding and coming out. Lurching is when you're going and going back and forth. That's lurching.
Hey Mac, good morning.
Mac, at any rate, it's
okay. I would say we're lurking between, because the temperature is like up, down, up, down.
No, but see,
so we're like,
that's why we use the word lurch. Let's not get into it. All right. At any rate,
we could fill a whole half hour that way.
Yeah, I suppose we could. But fun show today. If you like to climb trees and you're a gal, this is the show for you. You don't even have to climb trees. I put that in the blog post. I said, women climbing trees, because it's a little, it has more of an image. It resonates a little more. But we're going to be talking about careers in arboriculture. And speaking of words, if you type arboriculture into, I don't know, a Word document or WordPress or Facebook, they do not recognize the word arboriculture. And I looked up the pronunciation of it. Sometimes it's arboriculture, because the English language has been so badly compromised now. We'll allow any pronunciation. We really don't care anymore. It's like Just don't
Just say it. Yeah.
just don't call me late for dinner is all we care about anymore. But so whether it's arboriculture or arboriculture, Jill Bondi from
Tree stuff.
Bartlett Tree Experts will be here to talk about. She has been an arborist herself in the past and has done a lot of things in the horticultural world. In fact, when I first met her, I believe she was working for Midwest Ground Covers. Maybe even earlier than that, I met her. We'll have to.
Yeah, when she was with another tree company,
Uh,
probably.
I'm not sure she's been with another tree company.
Yeah.
Was she? Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I know she's done other kinds of horticultural work, and she will start and talk about what women are doing in the world of arboriculture, and the numbers are going up, which is kind of cool. All right. I should adjust too. I'll adjust down. How's that? You adjust up, I'll adjust down. For those of you,
Actually, I pulled it down because I look like I'm looking up at the camera. So
oh, well. So Jill Bondi will be here at the bottom of this hour. And then at the top of the 10 o'clock hour, we're bringing in a guy who is going to talk to us about glass recycling. I met him. His name is Scott DeFife, and he is with a couple of organizations. He's president of the Glass Packaging Institute, or GPI, but he's also with the Glass Recycling Foundation. And I met him through the Illinois Recycling Foundation, which, in full disclosure, I am a board member. And
director.
yeah, whatever. And
That's what it says on the website. It says you're a director.
not on my website.
No,
So
on the Recycling
I
Association website.
believe me, I don't direct anything. I show up to board meetings, online board meetings, and he was receiving an award from the IRA, and we're going to be talking about. And it's so interesting if you do any research on glass recycling. And I'll ask him about this. Half the time they say, "Oh, it's so difficult. It's very difficult," and the other half they say, "Oh my gosh, it's wonderful, and we need to do more of it." And you kind of get whiplash when you read about both. So he will be with us to talk about a campaign they did in Chicago. Started in a couple of places in Arizona and Chicago called "Don't Trash Glass," and it involved the Corona people, not the virus, but the beer, and they had a glass crusher on site, and you could go and watch glass be crushed into sand, which I would like to see. I wish we had it today. I wish we had the machine here so that we could do that. But we'll be talking about glass recycling because for those of you who have single stream, and that is the blue cart where you throw everything in, glass can sometimes be a contaminant, and we need to talk about that. Why? How did we get to the point where we used to take our glass bottles back to the recycling, and now we look at glass and say, "Oh, well, maybe we shouldn't be putting that in there." I think that's nuts because glass is recyclable.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it in hour two with Scott, but I was just amazed, shocked, surprised to find bars, restaurants. I mean, the presumption would be, of course, look at all that glass bottles. Wouldn't they be recycling? I was just like, what? And I'm
Yeah,
sure most people, or many people are thinking, well, of course the glass is getting recycled. So
yeah,
it's going to be an eye opener talking with Scott.
yeah, because a number of restaurants and bars were involved in the "Don't Trash Glass" program, which came to Chicago, but it needs to happen all over the
Yeah.
country. So it's fascinating stuff. We focus a lot on plastics, but glass and recycling glass is very, very interesting. So Scott DeFife will be here at 10 o'clock. And, of course, meteorologist Rick DeMaio talking about how we're lurching between cold
He's
at
got some splaining to do
look
here.
it up, lurching between cold weather and uh, and warmer weather, but snow is around now. We may be getting some, and yeah, okay. So, one of the things that we can chat about before all of that is the COP26, which has finally come to an end. And as I was just talking about glass, and you get the two sides of that. You're getting the two sides of COP26. We talked about it um, last week as
Mhm.
well, and
That's the big climate change conference that's been going on in Glasgow, Scotland for the last 2 weeks.
right, Glasgow. And one of the articles I read said
Scotland.
the natives over there are getting used to people saying glass cow, which is how Americans pronounce it. And I think it's sort of jarring to them when they hear glass cow. It reminds me of a cow made of glass,
Well, that's like
fiberglass.
Edinburgh versus Edinburgh.
Right, exactly, exactly. Um, so when you look at all the different reports on it, half of them are about how there were all these accomplishments. Rick DeMaio, of course, was Mr. Positive last week when he was reporting on it, and I get that. Um, but then the other half of the reports are about how very little has gotten done, and well, actually, then there's a third uh, series or group of reports, which is about the protests that have been going on and the people who were shut out of the process. And by the way,
For
as we
any number of reasons, not just one reason, but many reasons.
right, right, and some of it was yeah, a lot of it was financial. Couldn't
Yeah.
afford to be there. Some of it had to do with the pandemic and the restrictions
Hmm.
regarding the pandemic. I just saw the article you sent me from NPR, uh, and I should have copied the photo, but I didn't have time. Shows John Kerry not wearing his mask properly. Okay, he's got the mask here, right below his nose. Now I don't know if it had
Yeah.
just slipped or whatever. I looked at that. Come
Well,
on, John.
there was a photo in the New York Times too, of one of the yeah, here's somebody, a director from one of the countries without even having a mask on, and everybody around him has masks on. And he's standing right in the middle of everybody with no mask too. It's like,
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah. Um,
and some of it was also the when 50% of the world can't have access to vaccines, that also kept some people from attending because everybody had to have proof of vaccination to come in.
yeah. Well, yeah. And as I said, some of the stuff was related to COVID. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, we're still in a COVID world. It's odd. Um, I, Yesterday, okay, on a Saturday, I don't know if you knew this, but and folks who watch the show see the ad. We'll have an ad today for my caroling group, the Frozen Robins.
Mhm.
We were at a tree lighting
You
yesterday.
lurched into the season.
We did. We lurched in. I lurch everywhere. We lurched in, and it was so odd because we strolled up and down a street in Evanston, but we also popped in to establishments. Some were restaurants, other stores. Um, and when we went in, the masks went up, and we sang with the masks. When we went out, we didn't have to worry so much about it. Um, and talk about whiplash. That whole thing is where are you now? You know, you're judging where am I in the world? What's my situation? Do I need a mask here? Do I need to find out whether the people around me have been vaccinated? Um, and I found out this week, and I was blown away by it, that my mail carrier is not vaccinated, and she said
Hmm.
she's thinking about it, and I just thought, wow, okay. And I'll bet other people know folks like that. I mean, in my circle of friends, pretty much everybody's vaccinated. In fact, I'm getting my booster tomorrow,
Hmm.
and most everybody I know has already gotten a booster. But yikes! I was just made aware. So when you talk about COP26 and what's going on over there, it's the same thing here. It's like, where are you? What state are you in? What city are you in? The rates in Chicago are actually they're going up, but they're pretty good. I was looking at a map of Illinois,
Mhm.
northeast part of Illinois, including the city of Chicago, has among the lowest rates in the state of COVID infection, and that's good. I'm glad to hear that, but it's not
Yep.
perfect, and they are rising a little bit, and I'm a little concerned as we get into the holidays that we're just going to have a replay of every time we get into the holidays. We seem to get a bump. So that took us off the course from the COP26. But you were mentioning the photos, and then the photo I saw drew that to my attention.
Mhm.
Um, so I did like that article that you sent the NPR. Um, and one of the things I'll be going through some of what they report on. And I'm going to cheat. Let's get
Yeah, and
these.
I've got a couple New York Times pieces that have some six takeaways. Yeah, the NPR was here's what world leaders agreed to and what they didn't at the UN
Right.
climate summit.
Exactly. And it said that as negotiators met in closed door sessions, thousands of activists filled the streets to remind them the world has less than a decade to get greenhouse gases under control. That's, unless you talk to people like Guy McPherson, who says, "Oh, we blew past that deadline long ago."
Yeah. Or
Um,
countries that have said, okay, 2060 and 2070.
well,
What?
yeah, and that's India. It's saying, and
Yep.
apparently they fought back against controls, coal burning controls. I'm like, really? Okay. At any rate, emissions need to fall around 45% by 2030. All right, we're all 9 years.
Yeah.
Not even that.
To give the world a chance of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees C
Right, exactly.
by
Um,
2100.
and instead, they're expected to rise. I don't know why I'm laughing about it. They're expected to rise almost 14% over the next 9 years.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, some of that's also lag. Even if everything were to stop immediately, the lag time to
well,
stop the rising is
y-
some
y-
of it.
yeah, and there's different kinds of lag. There's the lag of the um, of policy going into
Mhm.
effect. And what that does, there's also the lag of carbon dioxide
Yep.
and methane, which
Yeah.
stay up in the atmosphere for a long time. Um, and one of the articles, let me find this one because
Yeah. Well, here and in the end, developing countries already suffering damage from more intense hurricanes and droughts made a unified plea for climate justice. Richer countries are responsible for the bulk of climate emissions, they said, but poorer countries are suffering the most. In the end, they were the most disappointed as COP26 ended, leaving mostly with promises that their pleas would be addressed in the future. And the Minister of Environment, Climate Change, and Technology of the Maldives said, please do us the courtesy to acknowledge that it does not bring hope to our hearts, but serves as yet another conversation where we put our homes on the lines, while those who have other options decide how quickly they want to act to save those who don't.
and that reminded me of a story I saw just the other day in the Washington Post. The headline: During climate negotiations at COP26, extreme weather was rampant around the world. So, for instance, Monday, November 1st, um, Prime Minister Modi of India vowed to reach net zero emissions by 2070. They write here, disappointing many climate advocates who wanted the nation to aim for an earlier date. The announcement came during northeast monsoon season in South Asia. Heavy rains in India and Sri Lanka in October and November triggered fatal flash flooding and landslides. Now, India receives most of its rain during the monsoon, with flooding is always a concern. However, research shows that monsoonal rains, such as during the summer, will become heavier and more erratic because of global warming. Tuesday, November 2nd, more than 100 countries signed the Global Methane Pledge, a commitment to reduce methane emissions by 30% by 2030. As you know, and this is interesting. They say methane here. They say is a greenhouse gas. It is about 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide at warming the planet in its first 20 years released into the atmosphere. All right, and sometimes you see somebody says it's 30 times more powerful, or it's 20 times more. It's let's just say it's more powerful.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And interestingly, China and Russia, some of the largest emitters of methane, had not signed the pledge. But meanwhile, Japan, which signed both agreements, experienced record-breaking rainfall the same day on November 2nd. On November 2nd, the town of Kikonai in northern Japan's Hokkaido prefecture set a national rainfall record of 2.2 inches in 10 minutes. 2.2 inches. I had
Wow. You had that in your basement.
I had right. Well, and by the way, that rainfall in Japan did empty into my basement. Just letting you know that wherever there's a rainfall around the world, it ends up in my basement. And so on and on. They go through all these different dates and say, meanwhile, in this part of the planet, I'm sure there's one. Let's see, Southern Africa experienced exceptionally hot weather. Temperatures reached 111.6 degrees Fahrenheit in Mozambique, with another heat wave on the horizon. Botswana hit 108.9, only 0.6 degrees Celsius from its high in November. So all of it. This is, these are the indications that we need to act quickly. But that's
one of the
Go ahead.
one of the interesting ones I saw was the deforestation, which is I need to read more about. But leaders of more than 100 countries, and this is from New York Times, leaders of more than 100 countries, including Brazil, China, Russia, and the U.S., vowed to end deforestation by 2030. The agreement covers about 85% of the world's forests, which are crucial to absorbing carbon dioxide and slowing the pace of global warming. Some advocacy groups criticize the agreement as lacking teeth, noting that similar efforts have failed in the past. So that was kind of an interesting point of the agreement there, which I haven't read that much on, but that was pulled out very specifically in this article as one of the so-called quote unquote wins.
Yeah,
this deforestation agreement.
Right, the deforestation, the methane, those are the two in the first week that were touted as being important. But so many folks are saying that this was the first time nations updated their plans to limit emissions since the Paris Agreement.
Yeah.
Which, of course, the United States pulled out of for
and rejoined
4 years and rejoined, which doesn't,
and
not a
now
model
the
of consistency. Right. What?
The homework was, okay, all you nations, go back, redo your plans, and come back a year from now and show us your new plans. That was the homework.
Yeah. Now, generally, countries have agreed to release new plans known as nationally determined contributions. I love the jargon. Every 5 years, but with current climate commitments falling short, many developing countries advocated for speeding up the schedule, arguing that waiting another 5 years would mean crucial time is lost. And I absolutely agree with that. The idea that we would wait another 5 years and say, hey, how's it going? How's everything?
Yeah.
Did we knock it back?
Yeah.
No, what? It's still rising?
Oh, I was still looking for our pens to work on them.
Didn't see that coming. Wow.
Yeah.
Um,
So speaking of, I'm just looking at the clock here. Do we want to talk a little bit about Bell Bowl Prairie before Jill comes on?
Yeah. we can do that. And for the wrap up COP26, you're going to read a lot of stuff. You know what I would do if you get a chance, Peggy, on the chat function here. You should put the NPR piece. That's a really
Yeah, I put that up in a couple of the New York Times ones.
okay. It's a good comprehensive piece, and
And it's probably not behind the paywall like New York Times might be.
we haven't covered all of this by even we just scratched the surface. There's been so much. Oh, but there is one thing, okay, that I wanted to show you that I think you'll appreciate.
Blah, 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 blah.
So that's my new drop in. When I get tired of something, I just say
Blah, 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 blah.
okay.
Can I use that on Zoom calls, please?
Yeah, I'll send this to you.
Blah, 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 blah.
Okay, there we go. Enough of blah 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 blah. You're right. We have a couple of minutes before we get to Jill. Where do you want to start with this? You sent me something earlier in the week that I posted on some of our social media, but go ahead with that.
I'm not sure which one you posted. 'Cause I've sent you a few.
Either one.
But
the first one.
So since we talked last Sunday, there were a couple pieces, including one from Patty Wetley on WTTW, that basically said, airport's not talking. Business as usual. We're 65% done. Oh, and by the way, we're going to keep expanding. Surprise.
Yeah, it was it was a remarkable showing by the airport authority at the Chicago Rockford International Airport. Basically, what has happened is they made an announcement. We're not going to bulldoze now. Okay, we're going to think about this and get back to you at the beginning of March. Since that, and that was because of a court filing that
by the Natural Land Institute,
right? By the
and
Natural Carrie Lee, the executive director, has been on our show several times now. So they did the court order, and the airport authority backed off. But now the noises they're making are that we get to do whatever we want. We're not bulldozing. We're not bulldozing it right now. And by the way, all you stewards who've been taking care of the prairie for decades now, you're not.
We don't know why you were, because we have no agreement with you.
We can't find any agreement, and even if there was an agreement, we now consider it null and void.
So go away.
So they've locked out the stewards from the prairie, with the intention, it seems, that they're just going to pave it over come March 1st or whatever, or probably maybe before. They're saying possibly before. So I know that the Natural Land Institute is holding that court order in its hip pocket in case they need to trot it out again. But there's the future.
Talks now of a third runway and all sorts of things. If for anybody, I just put the link up again, savebellboprairie.org.
Good.
And you can link to a lot of information. A great place to keep up is the Facebook group.
And very quickly, I should have said this right at the start of this. Basically, Belleville Prairie is a remnant prairie in Illinois. We used to be called the Prairie State. We're still called the Prairie State, but I like saying now we used to be called the Prairie State because we're not really anymore.
State formerly known as
the state formerly known as the Prairie State. The airport, it's right next to the airport at Rockford, and they say they need to expand because if they don't expand, the world will come to an end. And so a number of environmentalists pressured the airport authority, wrote to different politicians and policymakers, and said, "No, you can't do this. We need to preserve this." Domenico D'Alessandro is a landscape architect. He came up with an alternative plan, said, you really could still do this expansion and save the prairie. And he has written to me, and if he's watching right now, I'm getting back to you, Domenico, because he's written to me about this, and he's very passionate about it. So next week, we're going to talk about it again. Amy Dahl, director of Friends of Illinois Nature Preserves, is going to be on the show with us, and maybe somebody else, but I know for sure she's going to be on the program, and she's going to give us an update with what's happening.
Yeah.
And
the whole tie-in to COP26. I mean,
Blah,
people
blah,
have posted
blah,
articles.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but other airports are busy planning to put prairies in to help deal with flood control and climate change, and Rockford's looking to pull theirs out.
So we're going to figure out whether the airport is going to
Blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
They're not even saying blah blah blah. They're just saying la la la.
That's good. We need one. We need a la 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 la. All right. Absolutely. All right. We need to talk about women in arboriculture or arboriculture, whichever that is. Jill Bondi is standing by. She's next. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Marecki. Peggy who? Who?
Good. I'll go get more coffee while she's coming in.
That's right. And I'm lurching into the commercial. Here we go.
Starting seeds with fluorescents? Let's talk. You've used fluorescent bulbs for as long as you can remember to start your seeds, and they work. We get it. Or you look at alternative lights to start seeds, and the fluorescents are noticeably less expensive. We get that too. But I'm here to tell you, you and your plants deserve better. It's time to take seed starting to another level. Here is why a good quality LED grow light does so much better than those fluorescent bulbs. Your seedlings will get a better start in life with stronger stems and no legginess. Not only will they have stronger stems, they will be stronger overall in order to fight off disease. You can get them in the ground faster because the cycle time for growth can be shortened. You will save money overall because you can grow better quality plants in a shorter amount of time with much less energy than you use with fluorescents.
Life is an ocean, streaming alone, ripples of motion, healing us all. Yeah.
Dive in, your time to win. Our hearts all in. Let's let the fun begin. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you skydiving, I see you climbing, I see you diving. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you skydiving, I see you climbing, I see you diving. Dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive in, dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard.
From spring seed and soil treatments to summer foliar feeding to fall stubble digesters, Blazing Star provides microbial tools from tiny biologicals for natural and organic farmers. They have solutions for home gardeners too. And Blazing Star offers agroecological education and consulting, especially for permaculture work in zones 4 and 5. Learn more about these great folks at blazing-star.com.
We are your doctors.
You trust us.
You trust us.
You trust us.
You trust us.
You trust us with your life. You trust us with those you love.
So trust us when we say,
Get vaccinated against COVID-19.
The vaccines are safe. They are proven to work.
You may have wanted to wait, I get it. But don't wait until it's too late.
trust us.
Trust us.
Trust us.
Trust us.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and there she is, Jill Bondi, and
Hey, Jill.
Uh,
There.
good
At least
morning.
my name is easier to say than yours, Peggy. Giovanni.
Yeah, absolutely. Any name is probably easier if anybody else says it except me. Okay. And one of the things that you should know about Jill, and we mentioned it a little earlier, she is um, has been in the green industry for. Do I have to? I won't even tell you how many years. Okay, just
A
say
while.
a long
A
time.
minute.
Yeah.
A Chicago minute.
A Chicago Minute, exactly. And you've worked on golf courses, native plant nurseries, field grown nurseries, container grown nurseries, landscaping firms, and tree care companies.
There.
And there you are now at Bartlett Tree Experts, and we work with Jill all the time. And by the way, I love the line you say, "Plants are my jam." So,
They are. They are. Ask my neighbors. I'm all about it.
okay, cool. And she is now the Midwest Division Administrative Coordinator for Bartlett Tree Experts. At one time, you're not now, but at one time you were a certified arborist, right?
I was for gosh about 12 years, and it was. I like to collect degrees and certifications. So
Yeah,
I
you've
have
got 5
degrees in-
associate degrees. Yeah.
Yeah,
five
how
degrees in
does
horticulture.
how does one get 5 associate degrees in horticulture?
So I went for 2 years. I'd gotten a scholarship in high school, and I got I went 2 years, and I said, I don't know what I want to do. So I started with floral design, and I saw them building a patio, and I'm like, I want to work out there. I want to do that. So then I found out from my counselor that I could take landscape. And then when I got landscape, I was like, I like this. I want to do it all. So then I got turf grass, greenhouse, nursery, and landscape and flora. So I went through the entire program. So that's how I am a 4-year plan at a junior college, but I am legit. I have 5 degrees.
Wow, that's great.
Good for you.
But it's obvious you love plants. A lot of people who are
And if I could hop in too, and
Sure.
a bachelor's in business management.
Oh yes, in business management. So I could run a green industry business. I think maybe.
maybe
I don't
good.
know. Scott Jameson is watching because he just chimed in on Facebook. So be careful.
Okay.
I
Ah,
know Scott, be careful.
No.
Hey, Scott, go get a cup of coffee, okay? All right. And he notes that you're at the Midwest headquarters here. We can take a look at that, and that's because there was too much activity going on at home, eh?
Oh yes, yeah. Between 2 dogs, a husband, and a 6-year-old. Yeah, it's a little too much activity on a Sunday morning, so I couldn't control it. So I said, I better get out of here.
Well,
And Scott does say you're the best, by the way. He just posted that. So.
He's the best.
all right. She gets a ding for that, and Scott gets a ding for that as well. Do you miss it? Do you miss being out in the field like that? Do you get to go out in the field at all?
I do actually in my role, although I oversee all the administrative assistants, I am heavily involved in production from a safety standpoint. I oversee all of our safety and compliance for our division. So I go out and can go and ride with reps and see crews. So I do get, I'm not a hands-on, but because I have experience in the industry, I know what I'm looking at and can talk with the crew and ask questions because of my background. So it's kind of cool to go out because I know what's happening and I'll ask, well, why are you felling it this way? And why are, so I can kind of see when they make their notch cuts, why they're doing it. And it's just fascinating work.
Yeah, I mean, and you have that authority. I mean, having that background, it allows you to know exactly what's going on, which is going to make your administrative work a lot easier too, I would think.
Absolutely. I call myself the stopgap because a lot of times there'll be things that come through, in our division, and we need to keep people safe. That's first and foremost. So when I see things come through that people are purchasing in the field, and I know like, oh, is this an approved piece of equipment? Because I know we have approved equipment based on our safety policy, I will stop, I'll question, I'll call our regional safety manager, I'll involve Scott. So it is pretty neat that I'm not just administrative assistant coordinator. Not only do I help our admins run awesome ships, they're phenomenal women and men. We actually have some men. We're changing things up here at Bartlett. We have male administrative assistants as well.
All right. And I would be remiss if I didn't. And full disclosure, Bartlett, of course, is the primary sponsor of the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and that gets a ding. And you can go to bartlett.com. It's that easy. There are 4 offices in the Chicago area. Let's see, Bolingbrook, Northbrook, Chicago. What's the 4th?
Lake Barrington.
Lake Barrington. Okay. And please, and I always tell people this when we talk to the folks from Bartlett on the show. Even if you're listening and you're not in an area that Bartlett serves, we have a listener in Portland, and you guys are out there as well, so that's cool. But I know there are people in different parts of the country where Bartlett services are not available. I say, if you're going to get have tree care work done, please hire a certified arborist, please.
ISA, go to the ISA website, International Society of Arboriculture, and find yourself a certified arborist.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I want to show you something that you probably recognize, and Peggy and I recognize it because that is the Bartlett facility in North Carolina, the research labs, and we've been there, walked through those doors right there. But this was in 2018, and it was a conference called Women in Arboriculture Maximizing Talent. And were you in this photo? Were you there for this, Jill?
I was not. I was fairly new to the organization, so I was just learning my role.
But they had all kinds of different folks there, and and when Peggy and I went, we went on a day-long, what would you call it, a class, I guess, and seeing the different processes that are used by arborists, including pruning and cabling, and
those are our client days, Mike.
Yeah.
It was the client day. Yeah.
We invite our clients out and just to sort of show them our research lab that we have, stocked with PhD diagnosticians, because what we do is we send out to the lab samples, plant samples, tissue samples, for them to help us diagnose and identify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Now,
go ahead, Peg.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. I was going to say, so in 2018, when you had a lot of the women in the trade from Bartlett there, wasn't that one of the first events ever like that, a women's conference for arboriculture?
There was one prior to that. I think they've had, and maybe Scott can chime in on the chat there, I think there have been 3, but then with COVID and obviously things changing, we've been on hiatus. But and actually, to give us some props here, I think it's actually become a bit unruly based on the number of women we have. It's not just 30 anymore. We've got 90 in the U.S. right now. 90 women.
Well, and when we went to the client day, we were not allowed to do this, as you see. They didn't let us climb up in the trees, but it's just very, very cool. I put this also on the blog post, and you can see the safety features, the harnesses that are holding up the arborists in the trees. One of the excellent photos I like is this one. This is throwing the axe, and if you and you can see that axe, it's headed straight towards the bullseye. This woman knows what she's doing. So that's just pretty darn cool. That's the other thing. That's another thing they didn't let us do. They did not hand us, especially me, an axe and let me throw it around. But
that was a wise move.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Safety
but
first, Mike. Safety first. Safety above all else.
That's right, above all else, especially when
but
Mike's in the room.
yeah, so you had sent us some amazing numbers, Jill, of just how many more women, even over the course of 1 year. I think you said 19% growth in staff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that, yeah, and that's the company wide. Um, and that's because we're located internationally. We have the United States, the UK, Canada, and Ireland. So that 19% is company wide.
Yeah. So what do you think is accounting for that?
And I want to say that the 19% is an increase in the number of women in Bartlett in just 1 year, and that's from 2020 to 2021. So it is
In a
very
pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And actually, in the United States, since 2017, we have increased 300%. We had 30 in the US, and now we have 90 female production. That's just production positions. That doesn't include positions in the sales arborist representative positions. It doesn't include the local managers that we now have as female representatives. So it's pretty cool.
So you mean
So what's a production position?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
The production position are people that actually in the field and hands-on. So they're the ones climbing the trees, inspections, spraying for disease and insects. They're the boots on the ground. And then we also have leadership positions, and that's what the other, small fraction of that number consists of, is leadership positions such as sales and management.
What about the lab scientists?
There are quite a few females there, actually. I don't know the percentage there, but they're high, and even our consulting arborists are females now. Yeah, it's just there's no boundaries, which is there's no glass ceiling here at Bartlett. We are shooting through that.
Well, that's good. It's I found another article. I found the one about Bartlett and their women in arboriculture in 2018. But there's a urban forestry researcher, Adrina C. Bardakian, and I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right, but she did a report the following year on women in the industry, and she talks about that there's still a little bit of blowback sometimes from men. Not a lot, she says. That's getting better and better, but there's still a little bit out there. It's still a little bit of a challenge, isn't it, Jill?
Absolutely. I mean, I believe, with there's, these microcultures within the green industry. And when you look back maybe 25, 30 years ago, our industry was very highly Hispanic, and it's shifting. And so you still have that, and if we are peeling back the onion and going with Hispanic cultures, women, they're going to keep you safe. So they coddle you and they don't let you do, many things because you belong safe and caring for the children, and things are changing. So, there is some, pockets, I believe, in some either positions or within certain organizations or even parts of the country that still struggle with that. But Bartlett is committed to blow through that and empower through it. Hiring people with open minds, and that, the women in the workplace, let's just face it, we're detail oriented. We're going to be safer because we don't have the machismo. So we're going to look out for each other because we're most people, female, are ingrained mother hens. So it's more like inclusive and cohesive, because it's like, I want to keep everyone safe. I want to keep everyone together. And it's just not, there is a flip side to that when you do put females with male crews, of them feeling like they have to keep up. But that is, I hope, is becoming less and less, and more of like an exception versus the rule.
Yeah, and that was the thing I was going to ask you, is what kind of skills that women bring to the table. And something you and I chatted about the other day. I think listening skills are some of what women bring to the deal when they're out there, because you want to listen to your clients. You don't want to go in and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. The client owns the tree, owns the property. They're the ones who live with the trees that you are caring for. So it is important to have that skill.
Yes, we're the experts, but they're the owner, right? We know what's best, but we still need to communicate. So them, communicating, knocking on the door, checking in with the client. I think that's much for most women. I mean, obviously we're all unique and special in our own
Sure.
way.
Yeah.
But for most women, I think that, we're more in tune with, you know what, let me check in with Mrs. Jones. Let me, make sure she's good. Let me tell her what I'm going to do, go over the plan so there's no surprises. So that too, that whole prep work, when you get to a job site, you debrief not only with your crew, but you ring the doorbell, you see if the client's home, you tell them what you're going to do, you go over the scope of work and the work order, and then make sure that they understand, point things out, this is what we're doing. And then, because I know that we have our Cincinnati office is phenomenal. We actually have 50% of our crew is female. They're women. We even have a female in there, a woman arborist representative. So girl power. I got a ding.
You got two actually there
You
at
got
that
two
point.
dings.
All right. And
So-
they'll have all female crews, and like the client, like the responses, they just love them. They're just like, Peyton was great. She's our rep, and Louise and the crew, and Maria, and gosh, who's all out there now? Madison, they're just phenomenal. So it's just really, it's really cool. It's cool to have, and there's a slight competition of who gets the better photo ops in that office, because I've seen them climbing and taking pictures, and there's like women in the tree, and then the men are like, huh. And then I get one, and it says "men in the tree."
Ha!
So we're like,
Oh boy.
And I don't.
So do you,
Go ahead, Peggy.
so I was gonna say, do you tend to see more women entering the trade just out of school, or are a lot of people transitioning careers at this point?
I would say probably more out of school. So I think it's these newer, younger generations who are feeling more empowered that there aren't any boundaries. This isn't a, yes, it's highly male just because the physicality, but there's this whole aspect of our industry, plant healthcare, which is critical. That's basically the health and welfare of a tree, and it isn't as laborious as a climber. So a lot of women are getting into that aspect, because you have to be able to know your tree, you have to be able to inspect your site, you have to know your bugs, you have to know your diseases, and that is very what's the word I want to look? Smart. You need to be smart to do that. And I guess
And
more
analytical,
brain
a lot of
power.
analytical thinking. A lot of
Yes, more
analytical
brain
thinking.
power versus physical. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that women mentor other women in the industry?
Oh yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I even see it with our team of administrative assistants, even in that level. Just we're always here to help, and society now has made it much easier to communicate with Teams and Zoom. So, yeah, I think that that they absolutely are much more reticent to stop and go, or actually much more prone, I'm sorry, to stop and say, hey, let me help you with that, which all goes down to safety, and keeping people safe.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the pandemic years that we've had here, and the increase in the number of women working for Bartlett. I think that goes hand in hand with what we're seeing in the job area in general, which is people quitting their jobs and doing something different. And it makes me wonder if during this time some of the women said, I've always wanted to be an arborist. And I've always wanted to climb a tree. And yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to
Or
follow
get
my,
more involved with plants and plant health care.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, yes, I think in some, but I am seeing the biggest trend. I'm seeing in a different aspect of people changing careers, but it's more in the industry, the administrative side, not necessarily the production. Many of the production people that I see coming in are, several years out of college or new grads.
Uh-huh.
So what type of background would you need, training, to apply for a position at Bartlett,
Well,
for example?
obviously, we would love someone to have any, horticulture background, forestry, arboriculture, but Bartlett has you really just have a passion for outdoors and plants and being outside. We have a phenomenal training program that ties right into our safety program. So they go hand in hand. So we would, if I had zero background and I came to an office and said, you know what? I want to work outside. They obviously vet and interview me and make sure like I'm not soft and not gonna cry and run home the first day like today. Which honestly, nowadays I probably would. But hey, I served my time. I had a brown neck for many years. Farmer tan on the neck.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you might run home crying from this interview, but other than that,
I'm gonna
Yeah,
probably
if you can pass the Mike Nowak show test, there you go.
that's right. You're good to go.
I'm gonna cry from Scott on Monday.
Nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. So how long?
But it's a very thorough training program. Is it? Do you have is it an apprenticeship program and then into the position, or how does it work?
So you start off at there's two sort of facets of our production staff. There is, we call it tree and shrub work, which are, if you equate this to like getting your hair cut, it's the trim, it's the finesse, it's the pruning, it's the removal, so the shaving. Of course, I have to have a hair reference in this interview. And then it's the plant health care, which is the health of it, the disease and insect management. So you sort of have to pick what side that you want to go into. However, us being in the lovely Midwest, those that choose the plant health care will actually flip over to the tree and shrub crew, the production crew in the winter. So you pick it, and then you basically we start you with they're called competencies. We have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, different competencies that you have to go from, like a production, the TSW, I'm sorry for my acronyms, my Bartlett jargon, tree and shrub crews, they start with a ground person, and you have to, it's like a 2-page checklist that I have to prove my knowledge and demonstrate my knowledge and ability in all of these different facets, and then I'm signed off by my mentor or my trainer. So that usually takes a couple months. Then we move into then a crew leader position, or a climber position. I'm sorry, climber is phase 2. So now I want to climb. So I learned all my different knots. I learned all of the tie-in points. I learned all the different like things about the structure, about cuts, about moving, navigating through. And that one's a little longer because that one's I think about 3 pages long. And again, all throughout the process, you're tested and you have to prove your competency in this particular. There's lines. There's like 90 lines that every single one that needs to be checked off and demonstrated. And then you move into the phase 3, which is a crew leader that says, I can do, phase 1 and 2. And now I also can lead people, and I can direct people, and I could manage a job site and manage a team.
Wow.
And we have many in our company, many women that do that.
Well, and what you're highlighting here also is the safety factor. Safety above all else is kind of where Bartlett begins and ends.
Yeah.
This is
and ends. Yeah,
and ends,
absolutely.
right? Begins and ends. All right. Before we go, my one question: why do people volcano mulch? Come on, Jill. Maybe do you have an answer to that, please?
I think they do it to keep us in business, which I'm so grateful for. Not. I've seen actually. Have you seen volcano snow?
Oh,
I have
no.
literally seen. You have to check out in like strip malls and malls. They'll pile the snow
Oh
and
yeah,
around the
the
trees, and
plow.
then there's
Yeah,
this little tuft of branches on
Oh,
the
right.
top.
Yeah. We when we had
that's the plowing. Yes.
when we had Skeet on, I don't know, a while ago, a number of months ago, last time, I think last winter, he showed us photos of some arborvitaes where the snow had been plowed right up into. I mean, those poor plants are not. Are not going to look good in the spring after having gone through that. Yeah, tell people, and I know your women don't do it. I know your men don't do it. Nobody at Bartlett volcano mulches, but folks, don't do that. Don't pile up your mulch against the tree. All right, Jill, this was fantastic.
Can I give Jill a comment from Carrie?
Oh,
She says,
sure.
"Wow, Jill! Wow, Jill! Thank you for being such an amazing example of talented women in the green industry."
Oh, thank you, Carrie.
There we go. See, you're going to
Thank
start your own
you.
fan club here now. So we
You
appreciate.
mean grow it? You mean grow it?
Uh, okay. Yes, it's all about growing. That's what we're talking about here. Jill Bondi from Bartlett Tree Experts. Thank you so much again. You can go to bartlett.com. They're not only a national company in America, but international in several other countries, and continuing to offer opportunities to women in arboriculture.
We're hiring.
Do you pronounce it arboriculture or arboriculture?
You know, I'm from Chicago, so I call it arboriculture.
Arboriculture. I like that even better.
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Arboriculture.
I don't, yeah, you know.
No,
I
that's
don't,
fine. No, that's very Chicago. I appreciate it. Jill,
yeah, right? Yeah.
thank you so much. You get to go
We're
home.
hiring women and men.
Oh.
We have lots of opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, folks, if you have ever wanted to,
Bartlett.com.
Bartlett.
Bartlett.com. Go to our website. We're hiring for all positions. Start at the bottom, start at the top, except for Scott's role.
Yeah, that's right. Scott starts at the top, and then he works his way to the bottom. Okay, everybody, am I in trouble now? Thanks, Jill.
I am.
Okay. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, go home and be with all the madness at your house.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I appreciate the time.
We enjoyed
Thanks,
it.
Jill.
It's the
Thanks.
Mike
Bye.
Novak
Have a
Show
good
with.
day.
Okay. I'll get this out yet. It's the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki, and we will be right back.
My name is Megan Kosensky, and I'm a plant healthcare specialist and a grounds person at Bartlett Tree Experts. It's no secret that the world of arboriculture is a male-dominated industry, but there is a fearless group of women out there that are determined to change that, and I'm really proud to be one of those women. Bartlett has been really great about recognizing any kind of roadblocks for different genders, different races, people of different nationalities, and just kind of taking a bulldozer to all of those roadblocks. Every day that I go to work, I find something new that I love about what I do. Every tree needs a champion.
Welcome to the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash? Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Novak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, rutabaga. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawns to rake.
And welcome back to the Mike Novak Show with Peggy Malecki. It's the delay sometimes makes it hard getting out of a segment when you're saying your goodbyes. But now we're just saying hello to our next guest, Scott DeFi from the Glass Recycling Foundation. He's president of the Glass Recycling Foundation, also president of the Glass Packaging Institute, or GPI, as it is sometimes known. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Peggy.
Don't you love he's got that the headset and the nice little microphone there too. It's like you've done this before. You've obviously get on a call or two yourself.
With COVID, the past year and a half to 2 years, it's been an endless stream of webinars and a lot of voiceover, voice calls and things like that. Even we've been able to testify in state legislatures around the country, using this technology that would have been really difficult to travel to in the past. So there's some benefits to it, but a lot of folks have told me I have a face for radio, and I decided to lean in on that and get a good headset.
The old jokes are the best, okay, and that the face for radio is among the oldest in the world. And should
I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, well, I can't help myself either, so I'll just pop this in.
Blah, 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 blah.
Okay, there we go. Blah, 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 blah. It's great to have you here, Scott. I met Scott. I watched him, actually. We kind of met there at the annual meeting for the Illinois Recycling Foundation. Full disclosure, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a board member. And you were receiving the 2021 Private Sector Recycling Program Award from the IRF. And you've got it behind you, I believe.
Yeah.
There. Wait a second.
Right,
Let me get
right
the
back over my left shoulder.
Hold on. We'll get the wide shot up,
there.
and we'll see it. There it is.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. That was a big surprise, but I was honored.
They keep those things secret until the folks show up, and then they sucker punch them with that. And of course, you still have the Halloween lights up, which we appreciate.
I do. My alma mater is the University of Texas. We had a rough night last night, but I try to use that whole September, October time to get all my orange, out as much as possible.
Get it out of your system. Yeah,
that's right. And at some point, do you make that transition to either the white lights or the multicolored lights for the holidays?
Yeah, this Zoom headquarters situation will move into the holiday spirit after Thanksgiving.
All right, fantastic.
The winter holidays, yes.
Yes.
But you received the award from the IRF for was it for the Don't Trash Glass program in Chicago? Let's start there. That was with your and let's explain first of all the difference between the Glass Packaging Institute and the Glass Recycling Foundation. I have you identified as being from the Glass Recycling Foundation. I could have put either one up there because you're president of both programs. Organizations is the word I was looking for. So tell us about about your organizations, and then we'll go into Don't Trash Glass.
Sure. Thanks. I answer to both. All the hats that I can wear on a given day. The Glass Packaging Institute is the trade association for North American glass container manufacturers and their supply chain. So all of the raw material inputs, and then everything that goes on the bottle after it's used, caps, closures, labels, decorations, things of that nature, and the entire glass recycling system can all be members of the Glass Packaging Institute. So that's a trade association. We represent the interests of glass, across the country in states, local government advocacy, and at the federal government level as well. The Glass Recycling Foundation is an offshoot of another organization called the Glass Recycling Coalition. So GPI, just container glass. We make the bottles, right? And the glass recycling, elements that go into that. The Glass Recycling Coalition was created several years ago to pull together all the different users of recycled glass. So that would include the fiberglass industry, other aggregates, and other uses for recycled glass, plus some brand companies that are interested in using more recycled glass, right? So they're heavily invested in glass. And then a couple of years ago, due to a need to reinvigorate glass recycling programs across the country, the GRC and the GPI helped, and all of the GRC members helped form the Glass Recycling Foundation, which is a 501c3 and is now starting to raise money and make grants across the country to start pilot programs or to help reinvigorate glass recycling in communities across the country.
Okay. I'm sure that will be perfectly clear. We're having a quiz about all the organizations at the end of this half hour. So everybody get your blue books out. We're doing this. Or maybe we should just make it multiple choice. We can do that as well. So tell us about Don't Trash Glass. That was what caught my attention at the annual meeting and what you were doing in Chicago.
Yeah. So last year, the GPI, we had put forth a study to figure out how to increase national glass recycling rates across the country, in an effort to get more recycled glass back to container plants. The industry would like to increase glass recycling generally to over 50%. There's a new national EPA goal for all material recycling to hit 50% over the course of the next decade. And the glass industry was working to figure out how can we get that done. And then secondly, for glass containers, if we want to get our average recycled content over 50%, we need to figure out how to get that glass to the plants. Mm-hmm. And so we released a study that had several findings, gaps in the glass recycling system, and identified commercial bar and restaurant glass recovery as a significant opportunity to increase incremental tons of glass that are coming into the pipeline and divert away from landfills.
Can I stop you? Can I stop you
right?
Yeah. Because Peggy was
talking.
A couple of things. Peggy was mentioning this at the beginning of the show, and that a lot of people might not be aware because people go into a bar, they go into a restaurant, they assume that all that glass is absolutely being recycled, 100%. That is not necessarily the case, is it?
Not necessarily the case. A good portion of commercial recycling and waste management is regulated differently at the local level than residential. And so you can't always count on the same level of service in a commercial setting as you can in the residential setting. And often, if you think about the kinds of materials that will come out of a retail setting, some retailers are heavy on cardboard. Some retailers are heavy on different types of material. Bars and restaurants are going to be heavier on glass and food service ware, right? So if the glass and the cardboard are, ending up in the commingled stream together, it's not entirely a guarantee that glass is going to be making it into the glass recycling system, and it may be ending up in a landfill.
Yeah. In fact, let me show you some numbers that your organization has put together. You'll be familiar with this glass recycling by the numbers. 10 million metric tons of glass is disposed of every year in the U.S. Now, does that include recycled and not recycled, or is that just what ends up in a landfill?
That number is a couple years old and is for all of the glass that was going through the economy at the time. That was the estimate of the material that was ending up stream.
Right, and 33% of waste glass gets recycled. I saw a number that I put a link to EPA, and I'm not sure. I think it was 2018. They were saying something like 31.3% or something. So,
all the glass.
31.3% is what you have up on the blog.
Right, and glass beverage containers are higher than food jars. Beverage containers, because of the deposit programs across the country, beverage container recycling is closer to 39%. But these numbers fluctuate. It's been hovering in the low 30s for most of the past decade.
Which we can do better. So here are some more.
Yeah, as you also wrote, 28 million glass bottles and jars ending up in landfills each year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot. And 90% of disposed glass gets recycled in several European nations on average. And this graphic is to just show that we could do better because other countries do better, like in Europe. And 40% of glass thrown into single-stream recycling collections actually gets recycled. See, now that's a number that's going to surprise a lot of
Yeah.
people because they assume, and again, something that I said to you the other day when we were chatting, Scott, is single stream. Best thing that ever happened to recycling or worst thing that ever happened to recycling? Well, if you're only getting 40% of the glass recycled that's being thrown in there, that's a problem, isn't it?
It is.
And can we
You know,
define for our
yeah,
listeners what
sure.
single stream is, please?
Single stream recycling is where you have one cart for recycling, and all of your recyclables go in the one cart. That doesn't mean that's the trash cart,
Right.
but
The
one
recycling
recycling
cart.
cart.
Right.
One large
Usually a
recycling cart.
blue cart. Okay. And in
Usually.
Chicago, yeah, usually. But we should make that standard. I mean, you talk about standardizing. That would be a
Yeah, it is an issue. There are certainly questions about standardizing so that consumers and residents, as they move or even just go one county or subdivision over, often in one area, the recycling rules may change considerably just by going over a county line or a city line.
All right, and so looking at the 40% in single stream that gets recycled, we can certainly do better than that. Look at this: 90% of glass put into multi-stream collection gets recycled, and by multi-stream, we're talking about what we used to do in the old days, which is at the curbside. You had the bin for glass, you had the bin for paper, you had the bin for cans. And that turned into single stream because, let's face it, single stream is cheaper. It's quicker, but it's not as efficient, is it?
No, the yield from multi-stream is considerably higher. It has to do with quality, right? And that's the primary issue that we could address with single stream recycling is the quality of the commodities that come through at the end of the process. The system was put in place, I believe, largely for convenience and to cut down the number of trucks that might be going through particular neighborhoods, right?
Right.
But it's only going to be as good as the facility that the material ends up going to. And if the facility that the material ends up going to can do well, then that glass, has a great future. If the facility doesn't have the right equipment, or if the economics of the landfill are more favorable for landfilling, then a lot of times the waste management company has an incentive to landfill heavier material because they get paid by weight one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And Marta Keene, also with the Illinois Recycling Association, just posted the 40% of glass placed in single stream program is related to the MRF or the sorting facility investing in the equipment to recover the glass.
Yes,
right.
Thank you, Marta. Yep.
And that's kind of what Scott was saying here.
Yeah.
And but it's also, isn't it also about what else ends up in a recycling container? I mean, it's not just the recovery of it; it's what goes into it. What are people putting in to their containers, and are they creating a situation where glass is going to become a contaminant?
Oh, sure. Sure on what I'll agree completely on what else is going into the container, right? In the glass world, we don't like to think of glass as a contaminant at all. And I think it's wrong to suggest that one completely recyclable material is a contaminant of another in a recycling stream. Because if we could clean up the streams in a properly functioning MRF, all of the recyclable materials that go into the recycling cart would come out, right? Now, absolutely, there are folks who aren't necessarily following the recycling, guidance or wish cycling, thinking that certain things should be recycled or could be recycled when they aren't. Or, like we were talking about a minute ago, there is some confusion from jurisdiction to jurisdiction about what can go in the cart and what can't, right?
Right.
And so inbound contamination is certainly an issue. You would like to think, however, that if the local jurisdiction suggests that glass go in the recycling cart, that we can find a way to get it to the supply chain, back into the recycled glass supply chain, and it should. And if it isn't, it's really a function of what's going on at the MRF.
All right, and back real quick, and we're is this, and I apologize for the circuitous route that we're on here, but I wanted to get back to the 5% of carbon dioxide emissions are reduced for every 10% of glass making mix substituted with cullet. Now you have to explain what cullet is.
What cullet is
Yeah.
and how it's made. Yeah.
So cullet is really just the word that in the glass industry uses for furnace-ready recycled material, right? It's been cleaned up and meets a specification to go back into a furnace, right? So the furnace is the heart of the glass plant. Fiberglass plants also use furnaces to make fiberglass. And so you have to be really careful about what you put into the furnace. Glass is a molten material, and mixing the raw materials once is not just heating it up, but there's a chemical reaction that converts it to glass. Once you've converted the raw material into glass, it has a lower melting point if you put it back into the furnace because it's already glass. And so by using recycled glass in making new glass, you can lower the temperature of the furnace and lower the carbon emissions as well. In addition, the supply chain for the raw materials is often, longer, not always, but often longer than recovering local recycled glass. And so you're cutting down some transportation by using recycled glass from the region as well.
So, all of that explained now, that gets us back to the Don't Trash Glass program that you rolled out in a couple of states, and Chicago was one of the areas that you rolled it out. So let's get back to that.
Sure. So coming out of the study, we had identified commercial bar and restaurant glass collection as a significant source of potential glass that was often going straight to landfill rather than getting back into the glass recovery chain. And so we had been working with a partner company, Glass King, in Arizona, which has a program going in the greater Phoenix metropolitan area that we're helping to expand, that was designed around bar and restaurant glass collection. And with the support of Constellation Brands and Corona, in particular, this past spring in Chicago, they wanted to bring bar and restaurant collection to the greater Chicagoland area. So we partnered with Glass King to see if we could create a new Don't Trash Glass program in the Chicago area over the summer. And so Glass King brought resources and equipment assets up to Chicago, and we partnered with Strategic Materials, which is a glass processor that has local facilities in the Chicago area, and Lakeshore Recycling Systems to bunker the glass at their transfer station in the southwest part of the area.
And you also had the glass crusher involved in this, right?
Oh yes, the Corona program wanted to, it was a multi-phase different program.
Yeah, there was a lot of moving parts to this. Yeah. Yes,
there were several things going on. So first of all, we were trying to help bars and restaurants out with their waste management systems, and in the pandemic, on-premise businesses were struggling, right, with getting customers back in, and Corona and Constellation Brands wanted to help a lot of their bars and restaurant customers in the greater Chicago area, and they wanted to sponsor free glass recycling for these commercial accounts throughout the summer. And so they made it available for us to bring the equipment in and to start to service, a couple dozen bars and restaurants throughout the summer. Corona built their own crushing machine as a consumer engagement tool, and Corona Brands had a national, a lot of education. They brought the machine out to some patio parties and had some consumer engagement where customers could recycle the Corona bottles in the crusher and turn that material into a ground up material that then made it back into a glass plant. an Owens, Illinois glass plant in Indiana.
Uh-huh.
And so that was going on to, to help the bars and restaurants and to bring awareness to the program. That was going on every weekend through the summer. And then the Don't Trash Glass program, we would come behind that with permanent glass recycling. All the glass, not just the Corona bottles, but all the glass that would come out of a bar or a restaurant could go in our glass container bins and then get recycled in a separate stream to the Strategic Materials facility, the RMC facility down in Chicago Ridge, and make it back into the glass supply chain.
But I am such a sucker for that kind of thing. If they're trying to get people interested in it, I would go, yeah, I want to see you crush glass. That sounds pretty cool, and I can see why that would work. You also you sent me a list of some of the establishments that were involved in this, including Palmer Place, Firewater Saloon. I don't know how to pronounce it. Nisei Lounge. Do you know?
Nisi Lounge, I think it's
Nisi?
a venerated Wrigley Park bar.
Social, how clueless I am. Okay.
At the city and suburban locations.
Okay.
Yep.
At the office, Edison Park Inn, Bar Louis, Cafe Michelle Whispers, Deuces and Casey Moran's, Mars Bar, Oak Forest Bowl, 2 locations, Bartini, Yaxie's, Circle Inn, American Tap,
Yep.
and Los Islas Cantina as well. So
yes, and I'm going to give quite just a little extra mark to Los Islas. I think they were our highest per capita volume participant over the course of the summer. I mean, every week Los Islas was definitely having a full container.
All right.
Many of them did fantastic all summer, but Los Islas, for its size, was really generating a lot of glass.
Yeah.
So, do you expect this to continue now? These establishments.
The collections continue for the people who are participating, and we're working feverishly to convert this to a permanent program, trying to get the details knocked out here before winter sets in. And we're in conversations with Lakeshore, Strategic Materials, and may have another new sponsor coming soon.
Oh,
so,
great. Okay.
We're not quite ready, but stay tuned, and hopefully we'll be able to announce another sponsor that's going to help us convert the program to a permanent program in the greater Chicago area.
All right. So we only have a few minutes left, which gets us to the point I would like to have explained, if possible. If working with glass is so productive, as you say and other people say, 100% recyclable, infinitely recyclable, why is it that there are, and depends where you go. I was Googling different sites on it, and some people say, well, it's weighs too much and it's contaminant and blah, blah. And
Some municipalities have no recycling of glass.
Right.
Yeah.
And so why is it with such an infinitely recyclable product, you're having a hard time making that known and getting more glass recycled in the United States?
Yeah, I would say, and this is with my Glass Packaging Institute hat on. The GRF is the C3, so we try to promote glass recycling. With GPI, I can talk more about the policy. So, largely it is related to the infrastructure in this country for recycling. It is single stream, can be very efficient, but it starts at the curb. And if you are putting all of the different recyclables into one truck, smashing it with a hydraulic press, and then taking it to another facility to unsmash it, and then try to sort it out, material quality makes a huge difference. And in a typical single stream material recovery facility, glass is what we call negative sort. It's the last thing before you get to the pile of the residual contamination that's going to head to landfill. A lot of the other materials, aluminum, plastic, cardboard, things of that nature, are taken out in a positive sort. That means there's a machine or something at the MRF going in trying to grab that and pull it out of the stream, right? There's equipment that should be in every MRF, in our opinion, but is not in every MRF. It's not
Optical equipment for glass?
well, optical equipment for glass is usually at the secondary processor
Mhm.
or at a place like Strategic Materials where they're going to use the opticals to sort the color, right? Some really basic glass breakers, filtration screens, trommels to separate the light
Mm.
shredded paper from the glass. So you have to think about if you go to a MRF and you tour one of these and you see the different um, bales of clean recyclable aluminum or PET
Mhm.
or other material or cardboard, then you're going to eventually find the glass pile, and the glass pile is often only 50% glass, and half of the weight and the volume can be dirt, bottle caps, pens, Barbie dolls, different things like that that make it through the recycling
Mhm.
system but end up in the pile of glass. Then it's really a question of, is there an additional cleaning process at the MRF that's going to take out all of the light material and convert that 50 to 60% pile of glass to a 80 to 90% pile of glass. And then the economics of moving that glass make more sense for a
Mhm.
lot of local jurisdictions, especially if you've got adequate processing facilities nearby. Um, another, I can stop there for a second, but there's a second leg to this.
Well,
It's the
we don't have a whole
economics.
lot of time here,
Okay,
so do it as quickly as
I'll do it.
possible.
Yeah, I'll do it super quick. The economics of the system where each local government is responsible for moving their own material rather than aggregating into a solid waste district or using economies of scale in a metropolitan area is another part of it. So the contracts that each community, local government, sub jurisdiction of counties and metropolitan areas, they're each negotiating with a hauler to do different things in different places and to move the material. And really, it would work better from an economic scale if there was more cooperation and regional waste management systems being put into place.
This might be too simplistic a question, but as a glass recycler, and I noticed that you came over from the plastics industry.
I did.
And so we don't even have time to go into the comparison here. But as a glass recycler now, would you be advocating for multi-stream collection of glass, or do you think single stream can work?
Single stream can work if the companies are going to make the investments in the equipment. Our current posture is we would love to see single stream systems do better with better glass equipment in there. But the second part of that is if they're not going to, Mike, then absolutely, we should separate the streams, right?
Okay.
So because the yield is so much better and all of that separate glass can get back to
We're
back
talking
into
about
the supply chain.
40% versus 90%. All right. That's
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
huge difference. And
Yeah.
we need to do a quick shout out to Strategic Materials, Inc., because the Chicago Recycling Coalition said, we hope you're going to mention, and how do they play into this?
So Strategic Materials is a glass processor. They take you can think of them in the waste management system almost like a secondary MRF, but they take the glass, clean it up, and prepare it to make it into cullet.
Oh, okay. And cullet, as we know, as we learned early on, is a vital part of reproducing glass, recycling it, making it, closing that loop, that infinite loop that we're told
Yes.
Can happen with glass.
Yeah.
Scott, we got to do this again. I mean,
Sure.
I still have a dozen questions to ask you, but you're very good, and we appreciate, and I hope this has cleared this up. The point is, recycle your glass, okay? Do not. The first place to start is don't throw it in the garbage. Don't let it go to a landfill. That's a lot of weight going to a landfill, and it takes 1,000,000 years for glass to break down. That's one of the places I looked at said 1,000,000 years, and it kind of it took my breath away, which is even more than expanded polystyrene, or styrofoam, as some people call it. So make sure it gets recycled, and we'll have you back, and we'll talk some more about glass recycling. But congratulations on your award, and
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that those institutions that you worked with in Chicago, the bars and restaurants, continue to recycle their glass because it is important.
No, they're anxious to keep going, and thanks for having me.
All right, fantastic.
Thanks, Scott.
It's the Mike
Thank you.
Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Meteorologist Rick DeMaio is next. From spring seed and soil treatments to summer foliar feeding to fall stubble digesters, Blazing Star provides microbial tools from Tineo Biologicals for natural and organic farmers. They have solutions for home gardeners too. And Blazing Star also offers agroecological education and consulting, especially for permaculture work in zones 4 and 5. Learn more about these great folks and great techniques at blazing-star.com.
And now for something completely different.
Oh, holy night, late December back in 1 BC, 'twas the night of the nativity. What a baby, what a night.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm.
So you better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town, Santa Claus is coming to town, Santa Claus is coming to town. Then how the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. You'll go down in history. They loved him, yeah, yeah, yeah. They loved him, yeah, yeah, yeah. They loved him, yeah, 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 yeah.
And welcome back to the, yes, Peggy?
And you just did the Frozen Robins first gig of the season last
Yeah,
night.
that's right. Their first gig of the season in Evanston, Rick. We we were on Central Avenue lighting the tree, and Santa was there, and Santa's a good guy. I was chatting to him.
Central and where?
Independence Park. So it's on the just west of Green Bay.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah,
There's the Great Harvest Bread Company is right.
Yep.
Okay.
Bunch of great shops there. Lots of really nice people. We were caroling for all the folks in the shops and everything, and then had a tree lighting ceremony.
So there's just a few spots left. So book your gigs now with the Frozen
That's
Robins.
right. Thank you. I'm going to hire you to be my manager, Peggy. Okay. And by the way, going back to our last segment about glass recycling, I don't know if you caught any of that, Rick, but it's just really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
The Illinois Recycling Foundation, Marta wrote, she is the president. She says IRF is excited by the free program being offered for glass certification to a MRF to ensure sorting of glass from other materials from the mixed stream to improve recovery. Cities should require bidders of their service contracts to have this certification. So contact the IRF if you want to know more about that. I mean, we should be recycling more glass. I kind of don't understand it. And we need a bottle bill in Illinois, by the way, too. So, but don't get me started on that.
That's why they had the climate conference in Glasgow or Glasgow, right?
Glasgow, right? I read one of those stories, and it was very funny the way they wrote it out. Glass hyphen COW, Glasgow, and I bet every time somebody there, some American says Glasgow, somebody in Scotland,
Northern Scotland, Glasgow.
Yeah, and Anytime they hear Glasgow, a northern Scottish person loses their wings. Okay.
Yeah.
So here you are. You're not even at a hotel today.
No, I'm in my home here with Jazz. As you can see behind me is there he is.
Up there he is.
Wow, he looks so excited this morning. Yeah. Mhm.
Actually, he's a bit pooped. We went for a pretty decent walk along the lakefront yesterday, right by Ellenwood Lane. That's that area right about 3 blocks north of Lake Avenue in Wilmette, and it's one of my favorite places. Do you know that what I'm talking about there, Peg?
She's looking up. She's not sure.
Yeah, that's where it's not the women's club. I'm trying to think what the big building is down
Yeah,
there.
it's right north of Michigan Shores.
Yeah, Michigan Shores. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful area that the locals have basically reclaimed and rebuilt, and it's absolutely beautiful. You can park on the street, take your dog for a walk down to the dunes there, and then go north or south along the beach. So south is Gilson Park, and north are some big, rich homes that I think one person got pretty annoyed and extended their rocky partition all the way down to the beach, so you can't get around there anymore. Which I get, I totally get. But it is quite beautiful, and we're able to enjoy it before the wet snow came in. But as you can see, we didn't get much, which is fine with me. It's still a little bit early for that, but still amazing how many trees are on the leaves. Remember last week we were talking, it was 65 degrees, and when I left you guys at about 11 o'clock. Rebecca and I said we were driving up to the Morton Arboretum, and as we pulled up, there were about 150 cars in line, all with the same thought. And we said, probably not going into the Morton Arboretum today, because that was the last chance to go and enjoy not only the fall foliage, but sunshine and 65. Although it was just as nice on Monday, most people don't have Monday off.
Right. And although we may get a 50 this week, we'll get to that in a second. But you sent me a photo that I just think is two 50s. Okay, good. This photo to me is hilarious. It's the National Weather Service watching the first snow. And it's just the idea that weather guys are going, hey, look, it's snowing.
It never gets old. I mean, this was... I don't know who. I think I know two of the people there, but they've had a lot of new people come into that office recently, and this is pretty much right down the driveway from where I teach at Lewis University, because Lewis and National Weather Service are on the same property there. And yeah, there was some pretty decent snow showers that came through on Friday, and I think what was really most important to note is that the visibility at the Weather Service at that time was down to a quarter of a mile. So even if it was the 32nd snow of the season, when you could look outside, the visibility go down to a quarter of a mile, that's pretty impressive. It always allows people a little bit of enjoyment to see how much a little bit of water vapor being lifted into an atmosphere below 32 degrees can have on the environment. And it covered the ground. They got about a half inch there. I think it was 4/10. And then within about 10 or 15 minutes, most of it melted. But it's typical for this time of the year, right around the 15th to 16th of November, to get that first what we call measurable snow. The first trace is generally right around the end of October, and the first inch is about the first week of December. We'll still see maybe a little bit of scattered snow showers come through here this afternoon. Obviously, it's not going to stick. The ground is wet. And then maybe another little flurry or two tomorrow before it warms up. So we were just kind of like leading into that couple of days of 50 degrees, without a doubt, Tuesday. And now it looks like Wednesday as well. So again, this time of the year, you get a lot of these ups and downs, and it looks like that's going to be the pattern for the next 3 weeks as the overall jet stream has become very, very strong from the west and very, very progressive as well. And this usually leads to wet conditions in the Pacific Northwest, and every once in a while, a big mid-latitude cyclone in the Great Lakes. So it's beginning to look a lot like La Nina.
It's beginning to look a lot like La Nina. I'm going to see if I can make that work
Wow,
for the
wow.
carol. By the way,
We
Alexandra.
were impressed by that, weren't we, Peg? Right? Did you see, Mike? Did you see the look of elation on Peg's face and my face at the same time?
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh my God, make him stop.
That's all right.
Um,
It's okay to be. I do it all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
it's
yeah.
exactly. There we go. Alexandra wrote, I got ticketed at Gibson because no Wilmette sticker. Streets also restricted. Where are you parking? That's what she wants to know. Uh, I think that was the place you were hiking. Well, you just walk over there, right?
Oh no! I mean, you have to park. I got to drive there,
Oh, okay.
but there you got to be careful because if you park on the street that leads into the wildlife area, you will get ticketed. You got to park up and down the street, and you got to be mindful of the signs. And part of the reason is because there's two large homes on either side of the end of that block. I don't think anybody wants someone parking like literally right next to their driveway. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the reasons why there's no parking there. And that's probably the reason why they got they got the ticket. But the main part of the street, the ones that runs north-south, you have to kind of know when to go. If you go there during, obviously, in the middle of the day, there may be some cars parking. But the bottom line is it's a beautiful area, and they've done some really nice restoration to it. So it's nice when people reclaim, beach dunes and bring back nature, and that's why I like to talk about it.
Actually, even along the shore in Chicago, up in Rogers Park, where you used to live, Rick, there's been a lot of restoration, a lot of
God, yeah.
just wonderful stuff. Some areas where they've naturalized the areas, and there's dunes, and the plants they put in there are just wonderful. So it's
that whole area, I think it's called Leone Beach, right there on the end of Tui. They've completely reestablished the American quote beach grass that they call it, and that goes all the way down to almost Loyola Avenue, which was needed because a few years ago, when we weren't getting the ice and the waves were coming up in that area, the beach was getting washed away.
Yeah.
And that particular area, the beach, the sand isn't very nice; it's very coarse. So when it would get washed away, you'd be left with rocks, and then no one would use the beach. So I think this was one way where they're trying to at least save not only the beach, but save whatever's left of the beach.
Yeah.
So hats off to them for doing that. And you think about it, that part of Chicago I think it's one of the more accessible areas from a neighborhood to a beach anywhere in the city. Because if you go down, places like south of Belmont Harbor, you still have to cross Lakeshore Drive.
Right.
But if you're able to walk from your street basically across a parking lot into a beach without crossing the street, that's pretty darn good. And there's not many places in major metropolitan areas. I know there's no place in New York City like that. But the fact that we have that here, and we're recognizing it, that it's an asset to the community and to the ecosystem. There's a lot of migrating birds in that area. That just checks all the boxes on what's good about people recognizing that, not trashing it.
All right, we got a lot of photos to get through here, so let's pop some of these up because you sent these along. This was Friday, the National Visible Satellite.
Yeah, and again, let's make sure we leave about 5 minutes to talk about the UN Climate Summit because a lot of news came down the pike last night.
Okay.
But this is what you call a comma cloud. So I always tell my students when you say "Dear Mom" and at the end of "Mom" you put the comma there. That comma cloud extends all the way. Dear Mom, send money. That comma cloud literally extends all the way from the Dakotas into Kansas, east northeast into northeast Canada. The northern part is over southern Hudson Bay, and the southern part goes all the way down to Florida. Wow. So this is literally encompassing about 60% of the United States and about the lower 20% of Canada. And this was obviously the thing that brought us our rain Thursday morning, the cold Friday afternoon, the snow, and then obviously the weather that we have yesterday and today. So this was a 4-day event. This is Saturdays. This is the back side of it. By the way, that kind of narrow area of bright clouds from New York down to Virginia produced severe weather. a couple of tornadoes reported across the Long Island area. It's not uncommon. We're coming up on the anniversary, November 17th, of the worst tornado outbreak in the history of the Midwest. And, that F4 that went through Washington, Illinois back in 2013.
Right.
So November, you can get some pretty significant, weather systems. Again, the winds coming in from the northwest over Washington, north of Oregon, and into parts of Montana, producing just copious amounts of precipitation in Washington State and the Olympic Peninsula. And now they have flooding that they got to worry about, landslides.
We've got some maps about that. We'll get. We can actually. I could go right to that if you wanted.
Whatever you want to do.
Let's see here. Here's this is. There's all right. Here's a precipitation map of western part of the U.S. Look at Washington State and Oregon. But this is what the Pacific Northwest should look like. This is the kind of rain they get.
Right. Now here's the thing. I've been reading a lot of the discussions, and what they're concerned about is that, they had some very heavy snow on top of that very heavy rain. So you'll get, mudslides and things like that. But what was included for the first time in their discussion was areas where they had recent wildfires. So the burn scars, where you had basically nothing left except maybe the nubs of trees because everything burnt all the way down to the ground. Now you're getting some of that precipitation carrying away the soil and producing mudslides over certain areas. So similar to what used to be more so of an occurrence in southern, central, and northern California in those mountainous areas, you're now getting almost routinely in parts of the northern Oregon area and across the Cascades of Washington, but more specifically in the Olympic Peninsula. So if you look at the next map, this was what actually happened. This is what's going to happen.
This is what's going to happen. I don't have another one. Which map are you talking about?
That's all right. This works.
Okay. All right.
So this is the 7-day rainfall forecast. And this again now highlights the same areas that were hit with all that heavy rain and snow last week are now going to be in it again. So if you notice that area of the Olympic Peninsula, parts of northern Washington up into British Columbia, again, are having another 8 to 10 inches of liquid water. And I was just looking at some webcams up around Hurricane Ridge, which
I've got that here. Let me find that for you. Okay, this is pretty cool.
And also Whistler Peak. What they're concerned about, and this was I think this was early in the week on the 6th, and it could look like that on the 6th, and then 3 days later they had this, which was almost, it looks like about 2 feet of snow, and more than anybody, Mike, from that area, that's heavy wet snow.
Yeah.
And if you look at that webcam now, all the snow is completely melted, and they're back to getting heavy rain with temperatures in the mid-40s.
Wow.
So again, well, the Olympic Peninsula is probably going to be okay because they didn't really get into the wildfires as much, but it's the other areas inland that they're concerned about, the areas that had the horrible heat wave and the horrible wildfires. Now they're getting landslides and mudslides, and that's the kind of stuff that could ruin an ecosystem. So here's the forecast.
Yeah, here we are.
So here's the forecast that shows the rain and it doesn't really show snow, it just shows liquid water. But it's those same areas east of Seattle and those mountains. Those were the ones that had horrible fires. And again, the burn scars is where you're getting your mudslides. So this goes back to the Oso mudslide that I remember happening about 6 or 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now they're concerned about this occurring in that particular area. So again, a La Nina pattern basically pushes the jet stream a little bit further north. It generally produces dry weather across the desert Southwest where we don't need it. It produces very wet conditions from Washington State upward into British Columbia. Anchorage, Alaska just had 12 to 16 inches of snow the other day, which was a daily record for November. And then as the jet stream sinks into the middle part of the United States, we get these big mid-latitude cyclones. So as I mentioned several times before, you almost have to wait until you get into the middle of November, which is kind of like the middle of May, to determine what type of pattern you're going to get for the upcoming season. So
Yeah.
November usually dictates what you're going to get in the wintertime, and May basically for the summer.
And one thing you should know about the Olympic Peninsula in particular in Washington State, I've seen charts of rainfall over the years. They will get up to 175 inches of rain annually.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, and by comparison, Chicago gets 40. Okay, around 40. So, you know,
Well, that's why it's a temperate rainforest.
that's why it's a rainforest. Exactly here. And here are some the surface forecast. This is a 9 a.m. You sent this yesterday, of course. So
Yeah, so the green basically has been what's occurring right. And by the way, real quickly, as Peg was alluding to, it's a temperate rainforest. There's also a very large Native American reservation in that area. So even if you do get certain areas where you'll get massive amounts of mudslide, there's not a lot of development on that peninsula. So you're not going to get the impacts as you would in areas, say, east of Seattle, where you have people building literally right at the bottom of the canyon. So we've kind of learned that certain areas of the United States you don't develop, and the Olympic Peninsula is one of those. But the bottom line is that little bit of green over us, that's about it. I mean, I think we're done with precipitation here. The system went a little bit further north than what was expected by about maybe 50 miles or so. And the closest that the snow came was just north of Madison, where they got about 2 or 3 inches around the Beaver Dam area. But even if we do get a little bit of snow shower activity, which this is showing by later on this afternoon,
well, this is 12 p.m. right here. Okay, and then
yeah.
All right, and then 3 p.m. looks like this.
Yeah, so everything should be shifting south of us in the next few hours, but the pocket of colder air is definitely going to be enough to produce some scattered snow showers. But I don't think the air is cold enough to really get any lake effect precipitation going, even though that's showing some little bit of lake effect rain. It's moving through so quickly that it's not going to really amount to much. So while you see a little bit of lake effect rain coming through on this scene or this image right here, less than 1/4 of an inch is probably going to come out of it. This will end up being a fast-moving clipper system that eventually, when the cold air locks in, there'll probably be 4 to 6 inches of lake effect snow east of Lake Erie and also east of Lake Ontario, which is common. Usually you'll get most of your lake effect snow in the month of November. So again, this is a very typical pattern for us in the month of November. So this next warm front coming at us, again, you can see the rain up to north of Oregon, up into Washington. When that happens, you get downslope warming across the Rocky Mountains. So that means temperatures in the 60s, even 70s in parts of eastern Colorado. But this is going to probably squeeze out a little bit of clouds and a couple of sprinkles of maybe wet snow around here tomorrow. But other than that, it's basically going to be cloudy. But what's nice is that warm air gets in here full force on Tuesday. So 55 to 60 Tuesday, and probably right now it looks like maybe even mid to upper 50s, near 60 on Wednesday before the front finally begins to move through. So this was based on yesterday's maps. That front that you see there is now kind of to the west of us by about noon tomorrow. So if you play it right Wednesday morning, you may be able to enjoy temperatures in the mid to upper 50s. It will be cloudy and it will be rainy. But that's it's common for this time of the year. It's not like we're going to have sunshine and anything warm for a while. So back to cooler weather for Thursday, and then for sure on Friday everything kind of quiets down a little bit, and we actually get into another shot of upper 40s to maybe low 50s for Friday and Saturday of next week, which will make people really happy because on Saturday is the Festival of Lights, and I drove down Michigan Avenue last night. And it was kind of odd because most of the trees that they're going to start putting the lights on still have leaves on them.
Wow.
So I don't know how they're going to be wrapping those lights around the trees, but most of the trees downtown still, along Michigan Avenue, still have their lights on.
Well,
so
it kind of depends on the tree because the cottonwood I love in my neighborhood so much behind us on the block north of us has pretty much lost all of its leaves now. It hung on to them for the longest time, and just in the last few days, boom, they're all gone. So it kind of depends on the species of the tree.
And were you, Mike? Were you singing to the tree? Is that why it lost all its leaves?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why my
All right, I'm done.
that's why my cat runs out of the room as well.
Yeah. So this is a 7-day rainfall. I think this forecast worked out pretty well from last week. We got about a ½ inch of rain, some pretty decent rain from Iowa up into parts of Wisconsin. And it's amazing how variable the weather has been across the upper Midwest. We went from readings, if you remember last week, we had temperatures in the 60s. I think
Right.
it hit 67
No,
in
it was
parts
gorgeous
of
last
Wisconsin
weekend.
on Monday and
Yeah.
Tuesday. What's that?
Yeah, it was gorgeous, the temperatures.
Oh yeah, and then all of a sudden they had 3 to 5 inches of snow,
Yeah.
basically from central Minnesota. Not one, but two different events came through. So even up there, I mean, people are aware that you're going to get these rapid changes in weather this time of the year.
Yeah, and we've already seen this map, but now it's in context, and you can see not a whole lot of moisture in the next 7 days here, is there?
No, for us outside of that quarter inch to ½ inch, if we get it Wednesday morning, that should be it. And that's kind of nice because I think we need things to dry out a little bit. There's a lot of leaves out there that clearly people need to pick up, but you can definitely see, or want to pick up, but you can definitely see how much of the desert Southwest remained dry. And that's basically the 6 to 10 day. So wetter than normal across the deep South. Near to wetter than normal across the Pacific Northwest. And again, this is how La Ninas kind of start out, where you get that jet stream that's fairly strong across the Pacific Northwest, and you get a lot of downslope warming, not only in the Sierras into the Great Basin parts of Colorado as well. So they've gotten some pretty decent snow. I know they're already skiing in Jackson Hole. They're skiing in parts of Colorado. They're trying to ski in the Pacific Northwest. If it would stop raining in Whistler, it's not exactly the best place to ski anyway. But it isn't. I mean, when they had the Olympics there in Vancouver years ago, I'm like, okay, guys, you realize it can rain at any time there, and it did.
Yeah.
But it does look like temperatures here, outside of a couple of days of above normal to below normal, we're going to trend a little bit more so below normal. And that's going to be the case, obviously. What we were yesterday to today to tomorrow. Even though we warm up Tuesday and Wednesday, we go right back below normal for Thursday and Friday before we kind of squeak a little bit above normal. But if you look at it over a 5-day period, 3 are above, 2 are below. So it's not really trending too terribly cold. But one thing you could definitely see is that growing area of warmer and drier across the California desert Southwest. And if that's something that we can kind of like fixate on each week after each week after each week, that'll tell us that La Nina is definitely having more of an impact on the United States, especially the western part, than the eastern part.
All right. Well, you've kind of given us that forecast. Not a lot of rain, some variable temperatures over the next few days, which allows us to have that quick conversation about the wrap up of COP26. And you sent, I went to the wrong.
Yeah, and I just got a breaking news headline. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and COP26 President Alex Sharma give news conference after global climate deal agreed. So that just popped in.
And I think, and that they're probably saying that we've agreed on something. I know the U.S. and China already have announced a joint agreement to do more to cut emissions this decade. Brazil, China, Russia, and the United States, as well as almost 100 of the countries, vowed to end deforestation by 2030. President Biden led the charge to, along with 100 of the countries, to cut methane emissions down by about 30%. And India joined the growing chorus of nations, if you want to call it that, pledging to reach net zero emissions, setting 2070 as a deadline. Although people wanted India to phase out coal, India said, how about phase down coal?
Phase down. And China said that too, didn't they? Phase down?
Yeah.
And
in Indonesia.
And you got to realize that, there's still 230 million people in India that don't have electricity. So if you go to a country and say, we want you to phase out coal when coal is the number one way that they produce electricity, how are you being somewhat understanding of a country's ability to do something when their first goal is to get electricity to those people using coal? So that's why when I heard someone say, well, we didn't come up with a date, I'm like, you know what? You can't come up with a date because you got to put yourself in the position of where other countries stand. And if they're still trying to get, some of their residents, citizens rather, at least somewhere close to a standard of living that's acceptable for human beings in the year 2021, you phase down, you don't phase out. So I'm okay with that. I really am. And again, I know there's going to be some people who say, well, again, we came out of this deal, or we came out of this climate summit without a concrete deal. First off, the fact that we were even able to meet during the year after we didn't meet because of the COVID pandemic, and we're still struggling to meet because there were some countries that weren't vaccinated and people were still traveling and walking around the entire time with masks. I think in the end, you have to look at this as much more than a glass half full than a glass half empty. So I agree with UN Secretary or Climate Envoy John Kerry, who basically came out of this and said, look, we accomplished a lot with what we had and where we were 2 years ago when the U.S. wasn't here. For 4 years, we were not even part of any sort of international effort. So I think when you kind of look at it from that standpoint, a lot of things were achieved. Did we achieve everything? Of course not. You're never going to get to that point, especially when you're still under, basically the threshold of a global pandemic. Even though you can probably say in some areas it's come down, it still hasn't completely. And we know all it takes is, going back to mandates all over again, economies across the globe will begin to suffer somewhat. So it's like, to me, I look at it as like, how far do you want to walk out onto the pond? Is kind of covered with ice, but it's also covered with snow. So you don't know how thin the ice is. And those last couple of steps you're taking, you're putting your foot down. And as soon as you hear the little bit of a crack, you begin to back up somewhat. So I think that's kind of how we entered into the COP26. And I think we came out of it standing a little bit stronger, waiting for other countries to say how much they're going to cut, how much the rich countries are going to pledge, and then see where we are at this point next year.
Well, and an important thing to remember is that the $500 billion that we were going to put towards climate change mitigation has not been passed by Congress yet. We're still waiting for that to happen, which that will change things completely. There's a lot that's going to come out of this as the days and weeks go by. We're going to learn more and more about what agreements have been reached and which haven't been reached.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then real quickly, the news, from an economic standpoint, for the White House has been nothing but bad this last week because of the consumer price index is up, inflation is up, but it's kind of funny how people view inflation for the price of homes as a great thing if you own a home. So home prices are up 16%. If you're trying to buy a home, it's terrible. All right. But inflation actually includes the price of homes. So all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Home price is now up. That's great. But yet inflation's up. That sucks. But that's part of it. Now, granted, the supply chain, which is completely related to the pandemic, is causing chips not to be delivered. And that means cars are not being delivered. That means used cars are up because there haven't been enough new cars out. And any new cars that are out, you can't make a deal on it. So the prices of that goes up. And again, demand goes up. If people's money that they have in their pocket goes up, because remember, we put in $3 trillion into the freaking economy. We printed money. So now you have all this money that's basically there for free. People go, wow, you know what? Now I can buy something. And if there's more demand and less supply, what does that do? The price goes up. So this was kind of like the writing on the wall was there. We knew inflation was going to go up. But from a standpoint of allowing the current administration to have more bargaining outside of the Paris Climate Accord, that hurts them a lot. And I think that's what the problem is now, is that everything that's happening in the short term domestically is going to hurt Biden from a standpoint long term with the climate initiative with the Build Back Better plan, which is why I think finally the progressive wing of the Democratic Party got smart and said, all right, guys, we don't have the lifeguard stands that we thought we had to man the lifeguard stations. It's basically it comes down to that. I finally said that the tea leaves are not blown in their favor. And it took them, I think, for 2 weeks too long for that to happen. So in the economic capital that I think the White House thought they had 2 weeks ago, or even a week ago, is not there based on what happened this week. And you just have to let those kind of ripples of unhappy waters eventually just fade away, and hopefully things will come back to normal. But I think, as we all know, we've all lived through periods of inflation. It never goes away with policy. It just eventually just goes away. No one ever really knows when it begins. No one ever really knows when it peaks. No one ever really knows when it goes away. It's one of the toughest things to predict. And right now, anything that comes out of COP20 is like, well, we got that. We should be happy about it. Don't ask for any more at this point.
Okay. Good analysis. I appreciate it. Okay, we're really late here, so I'm going to say goodbye. Have a great week. We will see you next Sunday.
Yeah, no more singing until next week.
Okay, I'll keep it down.
And layers for your walks.
Yeah, layers for your walks and for your dogs as well, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, if they need a layer or a thunder shirt, yeah, I need a thunder shirt sometimes. So, all right, have a great week, Rick. All right, there he goes. Okay, and here we are, and I think we get to do this and thank all the people who are on the show today. Jill Bondi from Bartlett Tree Experts, and Scott DeFife from both of his organizations, which I do not have in front of me
Glass
now.
Packaging Institute and the Glass Recycling Foundation.
See, you've got the rundown. Great. I appreciate that. Of course, thanks to meteorologist Rick DeMille, to Kathleen, who does so much behind the scene you can't even imagine, to Legata the cat, who runs out of the room when I sing, and Basil the dog, who would do the same thing. So until next time, go green or
go home.
Stadler?
Yeah, what?
Is that it?
Yes, it's over. How'd you like it?
I don't know. I slept through the whole thing.
Well, you didn't miss much.